Okay, so here what I want to do today is finish 2.4, which is actually the last section of chapter 2 that we're going to cover. Then what I'll do is I'll move on to chapter 3. Okay. All right. So here basically what I like to do is I like to cover how to get the domain and range from the graph of a function. Okay, that's what I'm going to go through now, how to get the domain and range from the graph of a function. Okay. It's actually not that bad. You just have to, it does take a little bit of visualization. You have to remember also that the domain is the portion of the x-axis that's either under or above the graph. Remember, we have y is a function of x, so the x-axis is where the domain lives. And again, it's the part of the x-axis, the domain is part of the x-axis that is either under or above the graph. And again, y is a function of x, so the y-axis, that's where the range lives. Okay, that's where the range lives. And the range, remember, that's the part of the y-axis that's on the left or the right of the graph. That's either on the left side or the right side of the graph. So as an example, I'm going to try drawing some stuff too also. Let's say we had this graph here. This is the full graph, so it doesn't go beyond what you see. Okay. So again, what we can do is picture taking the graph and projecting it or pushing it down onto the x-axis. That's what I'm doing with these so-called vertical lines. Again, I'm drawing using a mouse, so be a little, how do I say, be a little patient with me, I guess. So let me just try and do that. Okay. As you can see, but again, you can hopefully see though you can hopefully see that between -3 and 0 at least, that's part of the domain because the graph is under it. You know, the x-axis, this part of the x-axis from -3 to 0, that's part of the domain because it's above the graph. Okay. Right, we keep on doing this past that point of intersection. Now this part of the x-axis is below the graph. Okay, so it's still in the domain. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. As you can see. Right, we keep on going. You know, again, I know these lines are supposed to be vertical, but bear with me. But anyway, we can see hopefully from these vertical lines that if we were to imagine taking the graph and pushing it onto the x-axis, that everything from -3 all the way to 4, oh boy, all the way down to 4 here. Oh my goodness. Hopefully you can see though that everything from -3 to 4 is either above the graph or below the graph. Hence the domain is this entire interval from -3 to 4. I mean, I hope everyone can see that. Okay. For the range, it's the same idea, except you have to move horizontally to the y-axis. For the range, though, you have to move horizontally. Let me use a different color. No, not that. That's too bright. Let me use, there we go. Okay. You have to move horizontally to the y-axis. So again, now I'm moving horizontally. So we're at -8, right? Keep doing this. We're a little below -6, right? Keep on going. We're horizontally like so. Okay. You know, you're trying to get all the y values, basically, either to the right of the graph or to the left of the graph. Like so. So you can see. Oh boy, that came out bad. I mean, hopefully you can see though visually. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, hold on. That last line is horrible. I gotta draw that one again. Come on. Okay. Come on. Bear with me. It's a lot better. All right, well, anyway, hopefully you can see though that everything from -8 all the way up to 6 on the y-axis, everything from -8 to 6 is either to the right of the graph or to the left of the graph. So the range then is from -8 to 6. Okay, -8 to 6. So that's what we get here. All right. Are there any questions about this? I know it takes a little visualization, so it does take a bit. It's not terrible though, as you can hopefully see. So for this one, let's get the domain of this. All right. So I'm going to use the same color. So again, with the domain, you want to see what portion of the x-axis is above or below the graph. And hopefully these vertical lines that I'm drawing really illustrate that. Although I guess you can use the grid lines that are already drawn if you want. Oh my goodness. Good. But hopefully you can see what I'm drawing. Oh boy. So I am not in art. That's why I didn't major in art in the college. So bear with me. But hopefully you can see though that everything from -4 up to, well, not quite there yet, but -4. Let me just go here, but hopefully you can see. Hopefully you can see though that everything from -4 to 2 is below the graph, right? So because it's below the graph, that tells you the domain is the interval from -4 to 2. Okay? You know, in other words, all this. Hopefully you can see that, even though I drew it very badly. So, all right. Well, that's what the domain. The range, again, is the same idea. You just have to move horizontally to the y-axis. Okay? That's what you have to do then. All right, so let's do that. All right, let me use a different color though. Use orange. Okay. So what I'm going to do is start, if I can, there we go. Couldn't really see it. So again, we're up here, right? So we draw these horizontal lines to the y-axis, right? We're at 4. Okay. Do this, we're at 3.5. Okay. Keep on drawing these. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. But hopefully you can see that everything above 2 is in the range, right? Well, not everything above 2, from 2 to 4, that is, that's better, is in the range, right? Because that part is to the right. Now over here, you can move to the left. Okay. From the y-axis to the graph, or graph to the y-axis. But hopefully you can see though that everything from 1 to 4, everything from 1 to 4 is in the range, okay? All this, wait, let me get the pen actually. Let me use a darker color. There we go. You know, this is all in the range. From 1, excuse me, I think if I said -1, I'm sorry. From 1 to 4, that's the range of it. I mean, hopefully you were able to see that. That's what I was trying to show. Okay. I mean, you don't have to draw those lines, I guess. What you could also do if you want, I said this to the other class, you can imagine walking along the x-axis, looking up or down to see the graph. Okay, the graph is above us. Let's keep walking as long as it's above or below us. Okay, it's above, walking along the x-axis, up here, we don't see the graph anymore. So from -4, where we started, all the way at 2, the graph was above us. So this must be the domain. And the range is the same idea. It's just that you have to look to the left or the right. To the left, it's not here. To the right, oh, it's there. So one is to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right. Stop here. Good. Now we look to the left, 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 left. After 4, it's no longer to the left of us, right? We're looking horizontally, and it's not to the right. So it must be from 1 to 4. I hope that made sense also. All right. Are there any questions about that? Yeah, I really, really hope that makes sense. Even with my bad drawings. So. All right. Okay, so let's do another one. Then I'll have everyone try one. Well, on their own, I mean. Okay, so for this, let me get actually a darker color. Purple. Purple's nice. Okay, so for the domain here, right, it's the same idea as before, right? Okay, so we start at negative. We could start at one endpoint, right? We go down all the way, as you can see. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, again, we want the portion of the x-axis that's either above the graph or below the graph. Okay, so it's below us, so let's keep drawing. We're trying to see what part of the graph is below us. How much, what part of the x-axis, excuse me, right? So here, now the graph is below the x-axis, okay, and that's what we're drawing. Oh boy, we went a little too far, but it looks like at 2 is where we are. Let me just erase the last line. There we go. So it looks like we're going to go from -3 all the way to 2, right? So it looks like that's why the domain is from -3 to 2. Okay? Good. Now, what about the range? Well, it's the same idea, right? With the range, though, you're going to move to the y-axis. So let's see. I guess I'll use a different color. I'll use dark red. Right, it's the same idea, but now you want to move to horizontally to the y-axis like this, to -3. Right, keep going. Right. Okay. Hopefully you can see what the idea. Hopefully you get the idea. That's what's better for me to say. Okay, so we have everything from -3 up so far, but we keep going. Oh boy, I'm drawing it. Oh, geez. We keep on going. It looks like we're going to get to 2.5. And okay, so it looks like from -3 to 2.5, that's going to be the range, and that's what we get. Okay, again, I'm just trying to illustrate how to get the range and the domain. For the range, you're going to move horizontally to the y-axis, right? You're not going to be below -3 because there's no part of the graph to the left or right. Same thing with above 2.5. There's no part of the graph to the left or right. So, all right. Okay. All right, so now, are there any questions on this? Okay. Well, so for this one, I want everyone to try. What I'm going to do is stop the recording. And I'll give you about 3 minutes to figure out what the domain and range is of this. So let me stop the recording.